Hi, everybody. Welcome back to MiSC Society Podcast. My name is Tally.
And I'm Ishdeep.
And I'm Hubert.
So it's been a while since it was just the three of us for an episode, and we're back today and here to talk about a very relevant topic for science students.
If you're in the Faculty of Science, you've probably heard people talking about research. Maybe someone mentioned Summer Research Awards, maybe your TA casually said they're going to do their honors thesis, or maybe every second person on LinkedIn suddenly has research assistant in their bio.
And somehow they're all standing in a lab coat holding a pipette like they've cured a whole disease.
Meanwhile, you're sitting there like, I once successfully grew mold in my water bottle. Does that count?
Honestly, that's basically microbiology.
That's right. Research is an important part of science. And as an undergraduate student, it's a very unique position to be able to get real-life, hands-on work in the field.
And the cool thing is that there are so many ways to get involved. You don't have to be some genius who've been dreaming about PCR since kindergarten.
Exactly. I think a lot of people imagine that researchers are the super intimidating people who know everything, wear goggles all day, and somehow never spill anything.
That's absolutely not true. For example, I spill like twice a day when I work in a research lab, and I don't wear goggles at all. Whoops. The number of times I've walked into a lab and immediately dropped something is also astronomical.
Or spent 10 minutes looking for my safety glasses while they were literally on my head.
I think that's called being a scientist.
Okay, so speaking of research, have you guys had any experiences with doing research, and how did you get into it? What is Summer Awards, or co-op, or honors?
Okay, so for me personally, I've had a little bit of all of them, except for honors. I started with a summer award, which was the URA, which we can get into later. And I did it on my first summer in my third year with Dr. Thomas Maruca in immunology. And his research was really interesting to me because I really wanted to learn about HIV and infectious diseases and how they interact with the immune system. I've always loved the immune system. And then afterwards, I joined the co-op program, and I had a couple of lab experiences too. The first one of which was with Dr. Yale Michaels in the Biochemistry and Medical Genetics department, where I learned a lot about how to engineer CAR T cells to fight cancers, especially leukemia cancers, right? Cool. And then afterwards, I also worked for a little bit with Dr. Peter Pelka in microbiology, and his lab is very much cell biology and virology. And I learned a lot about how adenovirus can interact with host proteins.
And that's really cool because you would think that it's all microbiology or health sciences based, but you can see that within these fields, you can have a little bit of everything and really figure out what it is that you like. And in your case, you really liked immunology, and so that might have inspired you, right?
Yeah, well, I did do one final co-op term with Bayer Crop Sciences, which was a whole other way of science. It was a great experience, but I don't think agriculture is for me. I don't think plant science is for me. But that's my experience, yeah.
I think it's important to have a variety throughout your undergrad degree to show you what you like and what you don't like.
Exactly.
For me, I've actually stuck to one lab my whole undergrad degree because I have liked it. So when I began looking for professors to work with for summer research, I was interested in the BMG department, Biochemistry and Medical Genetics, and I reached out to a couple different profs there and looked at my options. And since then, I've been working in the lab of Dr. Jim Davey, where we do epigenetics work and research in leukemic cell lines, and we do several different drug treatments and look at histone modifications. And I've gone through several different projects throughout my time there. I haven't stuck to just one. We've also done several collaborations with other labs in the Department of Pharmacy it's been a quite mix of things, even though it has been in the same lab. So I started as a summer research student. I did one full-time summer, and then I stayed in the same lab and worked part-time throughout the academic year. And then I went back for my honors thesis in the same lab again.
Wow. Now, I know what epigenetics is, but maybe for our viewers like Tally, who doesn't know what epigenetics is, could you explain what it is?
That's a really good question, Hubert. I think as a genetics student, are you quizzing me on my...
No.
And are you trying to put me down?
I would never put you down.
Okay. So I guess there's several ways that epigenetics could be described, but it's basically how there could be different changes to DNA and genes without actually altering the underlying DNA sequence. It's all of the added changes and additional modifications that indicate whether a gene is turned off, expressed higher or lower, and so on.
Wow, that's so interesting. What about you, Tali?
So I have a little bit of a different experience. I never did co-op or honors, only because I didn't really know what it was, and I had a different path in mind before, so I never wanted to pursue it. But after speaking to various of students like yourselves, I was inspired to start summer research. So initially, I was going to apply for URA and USRA because that's the only way that I thought it was.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
But due to some unforeseen reasons, I wasn't able to apply with a professor. Those reasons don't need to be said.
But what were they? What were they?
She just said they don't need to be said.
And so anyways, I missed the deadline. And I had to find summer research, and I was so panicked because I didn't think that you could do research without a URA or USRA or NSERC award.
Mm-hmm.
And so I started scrambling and literally messaging every professor there is to message.
Yeah.
And also I didn't really know exactly what I wanted to do research in because, I don't know, you have exposure to general microbiology, but you don't get exposed to those niche details when you're later on in your degree. And so I got a couple responses back, but the very first one I wanted to try, which was in plant science. And I ended up working there last summer. It was very interesting. It was a bit different from what I usually study. So basically, we wanted to implement organic farming, which is not very talked about. So in this day and age, the planet that we live on, there's a lot of pollution, and a lot of the elements like phosphorus and nitrogen are exceeded their limits. And so basically, my PI was looking on ways to change that, and basically I looked at the soil enzymes and was trying to modify what kind of things they were fixating,
Right.
hoping to make a difference. And this year I am kind of in the same lab. It's a different professor, but I actually got an award which is called RBC Scholar, and basically it allows...
Congratulations.
Thank you. And basically it allows me to travel to a whole different province. And again, this is something that is not talked about. There's so many more awards besides URA, USRA, and NSERC that are not talked about, like this one. There's also one called Triangle and a couple more. So this was my experience. Also, another one is an iGEM, which is a competition group on campus. It is a volunteer position, and you unfortunately don't get paid for it, but it really exposes you to so many different techniques that you would do
Right.
in a paid position over the summer. And basically, right now, we're looking at urinary tract infections and what kind of solution we can do to prevent them. So, yeah, it's very interesting, and there's a lot of positions that you can do and explore.
I think you make a really good point in the URA is not the end-all, be-all. If you don't get the URA, there's several different ways you can still get involved in research, and a lot of it really involves just reaching out to so many different professors. You have to put in the effort for that part, but it should pay off, and there should be someone willing to take you on for a summer project.
Right. There are so many other awards, like what you said. There's on top of the URA, USRA, and NSERC awards, you have these specific institute-specific awards that are offered to professors who are part of that research institute. For example, Cancer Care has their own summer award. CRIM, the Children's Hospital Research Institute, have their own summer award. You have Triangle. You have other like awards that are available to you. And if you're in co-op, your employers actually, not a lot of people know about this, but your employers, I think, they get tax benefits.
Yes.
Or they get like some funding to help support a co-op student. So that if you're a co-op student and you're looking for an employer, that's a very important thing to remember.
Exactly. And just to add on, like, there's so many fields that you can do in microbiology and genetics, and I would say to try it all because, for example, for me, I would never think that I would like plant science. I have never stepped a foot in well, really anything that has to do with plant science. And when I did, I ended up really liking it, and I'm continuing working it. And I would assume it's the same for you guys. You didn't know that you can do it, and then you tried it, and then you fell in love with it, and now you're doing it.
The hardest step is definitely trying it.
Exactly. All right. So do you guys remember your first day in the lab?
Yes, I do remember my first day in the lab. So it was the first summer I did research, and I went in. I feel like as summer students, you have a lot of expectations going into a research lab for the first time.
Yes.
I remember going in having all of those expectations that most people would do, but my first day in the lab was actually very quiet. I was very nervous because you see all of this new equipment and all of these people that you think, well, they look like they know what they're doing and they know everything.
Yeah.
And thinking back, I think it was just a basic, like, doing all the biosafety trainings, getting a tour of the place.
Right.
And I didn't really do anything hands-on the first day at all.
Right.
Yeah. What about you guys?
I think I had a pretty similar experience. I remember I was so worried about, well, you know, what to wear, what am I going to say? I was
Right.
practicing, like, how I'm going to introduce myself. And I came in, and it was the chillest thing I have ever seen. Everybody was so
Right.
welcoming and friendly. And this is the misconception. Everybody thinks because they're a researcher or a PhD student or master's
Right.
students, they're going to put you down because you're an undergrad. But you are an undergrad and you have knowledge. You're taking classes that prepare you for this, and
Exactly.
you shouldn't feel down about yourself. And this is really exciting that you get to talk and meet to people.
Yeah.
So I don't think this should be anything intimidating.
Yeah, I think it's a huge misconception that people have about like PhD or masters or like researchers, that they're like these snobbish, really rude and cold people, when in fact they probably just show up in like hoodies and pajamas and
Yes.
like really chill people.
Yeah, the more you get to know them, the more you realize that they really are just real people.
Yeah, like I've had several first days in the lab. My first ever with Dr. Maruka was like each day was very uneventful. It was during COVID time, so I showed up with like, you know, all full sleeves, long pants, and
Yes.
a mask. And then I was looking for Dr. Maruka, and then he came in and was like, "Oh, hey, Hubert." And then I was like, "Oh, hi, Dr. Maruka. I'm here for my first day." And he's like, "Just call me Thomas." It's fine."
Yes, that also happened on my first day too.
Right, exactly. My second first day with Dr. Yale Michaels was not as fortunate, or maybe more fortunate, because my first day, my direct supervisor, shout out to Paul, he's the PhD student in his lab. He immediately took me to do some cell culture work.
Oh, really?
First thing in the morning.
Right off the bat.
Exactly. It even surprised Yale for a bit. I was like, "Oh, you're already taking him doing all these like cell culture work." And I'm like, "I know."
Was it just something he was doing that day and needed to take you along for it?
No,
or?
it was like training. So he
Oh, you were
specifically
already
gave
getting
me-
trained.
Exactly. Like, these are your children. You have to keep them safe
And alive.
Alive.
Yeah.
And it was kind of nerve-wracking, but it was a great experience. Now, my third lab first day was, I think, the most memorable, because my first day, so Dr. Peter Palka, his lab has these huge cylinders of bleach that that you can put like your waste, like lab waste into. Now, I wore, for some stupid reason, a really high platform shoes,
Right.
footwear, and then I was trying to step over a cylinder instead of, you know, like a normal person stepping aside from it, and I knocked it over, spilling liters of bleach
Oh, gosh.
into the lab floor.
Oh my goodness.
And I was mortified.
Yes.
Thankfully, Dr. Pelka was such a great sport about it, and he just said, "Well, trial by fire."
Yeah.
That reminds me of something. So in my own lab that I've worked in forever, I've never really had a major spill like that. But one time I was we were collaborating with a lab in the Department of Pharmacology and Therapeutics, and I was in their lab for a day, and I was under the fume hood, and there was a bottle of Tryphon blue, like the blue dye.
Yeah.
And I didn't know it was open, and I knocked it over, and it spilled in the fume hood, and the whole thing turned blue. And then I was so embarrassed because it's like I've never spilled something in my 2 years of research experience at that point. And the first time I'm in this lab, in a new lab, that happens. Yeah.
Well, you know what? It's better to get these things out of the way, and then you don't have to do it again. But if you do, it's also okay. So there you go.
Yeah, I also think one of the funniest thing is that when you go into a lab, you notice that every lab has their own culture.
Absolutely. Like some labs are super quiet and serious.
Some labs are basically chaos.
There's always that one person who somehow knows where everything is.
And I feel like there's always that one drawer full of random things that nobody understands, but it's always really interesting to look into.
Every lab has a mystery drawer.
There's like 12 unlabeled cables, 2 broken pens, tape from 2008. That's being generous. We've found some 19 something type of things in our lab. And somehow a single gummy bear.
Oh, interesting.
Wow.
And I feel like no one knows who put it there, but I mean, it's there, so there you go.
Yeah, it's great to hear all the lab stories. So what was you guys' most memorable achievement during research?
So I think there's like smaller achievements on like a day-to-day basis that you do, and in terms of bigger things, I'll say one of the most important and meaningful experiences and achievements that I had was after my first summer in research, thanks to my PI, they were actually working on writing a book chapter for Springer Nature. And
wow.
Yeah, and that's something I never would have thought to be a part of. And especially after one summer in research.
Right.
So, yeah, thanks to my professor, I got to write a section for that. And that became one of the first places where I had my name down. And it was a pretty big deal, I feel like.
Kudos.
And I feel like this is really nice and shows to people that you can write papers as an undergrad, and this is not something forbidden that you can only do in a graduate program.
Right.
So definitely ask around, ask your PI if this is something that you can do.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think people should go into research like with publications being their number one priority.
Right.
Because it can get frustrating that way, and that should not be your only goal. You're there to learn. But if you are able to get some in along your time there, that's fantastic.
Exactly.
I think also a big part is becoming more confident in the things that you do. At the start, it feels like you need someone to explain everything to you, but having that confidence and having someone to support you really does take you a long way. And by the end, you're the one who's explaining things to someone else.
Yeah, I think for me, like I'm not gonna talk about the technical, like tangible stuff, but I think for me, the most transferable achievement that I had from all my lab experiences was the communication skill.
Yes.
The skill to be able to present complicated scientific things in a way that is understandable and digestible with people.
Yeah.
Certainly it helped my presentation making skills and poster making skills. I've never made like a scientific presentation or posters before, and it really helped me.
And also, I feel like a really important part is that you get more comfortable with talking to people that are in a higher position than you. And again, bringing us back that it really helps you not be intimidated by it, because everybody who's there and who has hired you wants you to learn and wants you to understand and get better and be the future of the field. But with a lot of success, I feel like there's room for mistakes. But I've heard the saying that research is 100% search and 90% fail. What were some lab failures that you guys had?
Oh, where do I start? I once left a box of frozen tissues outside overnight, so that's completely ruined.
Oh my goodness.
Like samples, like mouse samples outside overnight, so that's completely ruined.
Wow. Well, that's great. What did you end up having to do?
I was mortified. I was crying. I was calling my other undergraduate who was like my friend. I was crying. I was calling my supervisor, and I went to my my PI, and I was like, I'm so sorry. And then what's most frustrating is that he was so nice about it. It was like, it's okay, mistakes happen. And I was like, I thought you were going to yell at me and slam like paper in front of me. And then he's like, oh, I can do that. And he took like a piece of paper like, damn, I'm so mad at you. And then I'm like, thank you. That makes me feel better.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like for me, I guess I can call it somewhat of a fail, but not really. It was a learning curve for sure. It happened during my honors thesis when I was doing research from September to April on the same project. So we were studying the expression levels of several different cancer-associated genes.
Right.
And after a drug treatment, there were several papers out there that said the expression of these genes is supposed to go down after this drug. And we treated it with so many different time points, concentrations. We never saw the expression levels go down. So my whole honors project became us kind of disproving our hypothesis. And we're like, well, these papers have suggested this, but we found otherwise. And I think that when you go into a project having expectations, it's good, but you also don't want to be set in stone on those expectations.
Right.
And what I learned from that is presenting a project that didn't really go as planned the way you thought it would is a difficult task, but you're still able to present it and as meaningful data, even though it's not what you originally thought it was.
Negative data is still data.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I feel like a lot of people forget that to not get discouraged. Like, I have talked to so many people, they will do something and it will fail like 10 billion times, and then they just want to drop everything and not do it again. But I feel like you said, Hubert, that data is still data.
Yeah.
And if it's not what you want, you can still disprove something or
Exactly.
make it really
And it's
cool.
really how you frame your story.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. So it really goes to show that research in science isn't what we necessarily thought it would be. But I guess even with all of that, research is still a really fun and cool way to get involved in science. So let's talk about the different ways you can get into research.
Right. So I think the most obvious one would be the URA, or the Undergraduate Research Awards, which is open to students at the University of Manitoba.
So these are a great option because they help support students financially while giving them that experience in research.
So usually you work with a professor over the summer on a project and you get paid.
Which is amazing because now your summer job can involve science instead of just answering the same question from customers 50 times a day.
And honestly, if you're nervous, you don't need to have the perfect resume. Professors do know that you're an undergraduate student and are still learning.
And the biggest thing is that showing you are interested and that you're willing to learn.
Exactly. So read a little bit about the research, send a polite email, and tell them why you're interested.
Now, honors is another really common way to get involved in research. So you do it in usually your fourth or your final year. And especially if you're thinking about grad school, I like to call it like a mini master's degree almost.
Yeah.
Exactly. So with honors, you usually work more closely with a professor and complete a bigger project over a longer period of time.
And you usually get experience writing a thesis and also presenting your research as well.
And if you feel like being really independent and exploring one topic deeply, honors can be really rewarding.
Now, another option is the co-op program. So co-op placements can help you get experience in a lab or even in industry or in healthcare or even other science-related jobs.
And I think co-op is especially good if you want to explore what kind of environment you like.
Exactly. So you might discover that you love research and you want to stay in academia, but then you also realize that you prefer a 9-to-5 job like in industry, or maybe something that is more outdoorsy in like field work.
Mm-hmm. So there's so many ways to get involved. You can even volunteer in a lab or just talk to your professors, go to departmental events, and even ask TAs about their experiences.
One thing to add, a lot of the professors are really fair and they don't like having volunteers because they think that you should be paid for the work you do.
Right.
But still don't be discouraged to ask and see what there is to be offered to you. And also from my experience, sometimes you ask a professor and they have like a connection of another professor that they can put you into a lab. So half the time opportunities come from just literally talking to people.
Science is secretly just networking and pretending you know what agar is.
To not say secretly, it's very obviously networking.
All right, we're going to do something a little bit different now. We're going to break down some common myths about research.
Because I think before getting into it, a lot of us have very specific ideas about what research is like.
And then when you actually do it, it's completely different.
So myth number 1, you have to be a genius to get into research.
False.
Absolutely false.
You do not need to know everything.
In fact, most of research is literally not knowing things.
That's kind of the point where you're doing research. You don't know something.
Exactly. Now, myth number 2, research is super glamorous.
I would actually love to know who started that.
Research is sometimes exciting.
And
sometimes it is standing in front of a machine for 20 minutes wondering why it's making that sound like a centrifuge.
or spending like 6 hours on an experiment and then eating lunch at 4 p.m.
Relatable. Now, myth number 3, if your experiment fails, you're bad at research.
No. So if your experiment fails, congratulations, you're doing research.
Honestly, if everything works perfectly all of the time, that means you're probably stuck in a textbook and not in a real lab.
And myth number 4, everyone else knows what they're doing.
I feel like nobody knows what they're doing, even your professor sometimes.
Everyone is just slightly stressed and trying to go day by day and figure it out.
Yeah, so I think this goes to show that it's okay to fail. Fail makes you stronger, and don't be afraid to try new things.
Exactly.
Uh-oh. Do you guys hear that?
Contamination alert!
So this week's microbe is
Staphylococcus aureus.
A bacteria commonly found on skin.
And also one of the most common lab contaminants.
So if something went wrong in your experiment,
it might not have been you.
It might have been this.
Honestly, this bacteria is the reason why people in labs are constantly saying things like, "Did you wipe that down?"
And why everyone suddenly becomes extremely protective over their agar plates.
Staphylococcus aureus can easily end up in our cultures if proper sterile technique is not used.
So if you accidentally touch something, breathe too close to it, or wave your hands around dramatically while telling a story,
which Tally definitely does,
excuse me,
you might accidentally contaminate your sample.
So the lesson here is wash your hands, flame your tools, and maybe do not sneeze directly onto your experiment.
Good advice for life, honestly.
All right, that brings us to the end of today's episode.
If there's one thing we hope you take away from this episode, it's that research is not about being perfect.
It's about being curious.
You do not have to know everything before you start.
You just have to be willing to ask the questions, try new things, and occasionally survive a lab disaster.
Because some of the best experiences start with saying yes to something that scares you just a little bit.
And even if things go wrong, and they will, you'll probably learn more from those moments than from the times everything goes perfectly.
On that note, we will see you all next week. Remember to stay curious,
stay connected,
and stay cultured.